So it's meeting time, the meeting itself. So the reality is if you've done everything else right, you've pretty much nailed it. They'll be talking about you before you walk through the door. And in the email that you've got where all these videos are linked, I've got you a sample business plan. I've got sample why you, why me's, sample return on investment documents. It's all there for you. All you've got to do is fill it in and make it look right. And I promise you, you will nail these interviews. And if you haven't, you'll nail the next one because you're in the rhythm of it. They'll have talked about you, they'll have mentioned you, and if you weren't the favourite, you are now. So the meeting starts. Most people and most clients ask the candidates to turn up, stand up, do their presentation, and then they end up in a Q&A session of some sort, talking about what they've talked about. So the first thing that the guys that do well do is they do a summary of the previous meeting. They firstly make sure that they know who everybody is in the room, and then they say, right, let's just do a quick summary. I met with so-and-so last week. We had a really good conversation. We talked about quite a lot. And if you can, refer back to your notes from the previous meeting, what was discussed, what was said, what was not. As a result of that, I'm here today. And then there's one question that you ask. And that is this. I'm really conscious, guys, I could spend all day talking about me. We can talk about all sorts of different things, my CV, my career. What I'm wondering is, what are the issues and areas that you'd like to cover with me today that will help you feel comfortable that I'm the right guy for this job? Or not, as the case may potentially be. And then at that point, you do one of two things. You either draw a line down the page in your notebook, and on one side, you go round the room and create an agenda for the rest of the meeting thereafter, if it hasn't already been agendaed in the agenda that you agreed with them before you went. Or you go to the whiteboard and you write down the key issues and areas that they want to cover with you. And then you cover them. You take each one, discuss it, and close on it. If you can use the whiteboard, all the better, because they're all sat there thinking, if he does this with us, he does this with our customers. If he writes it down and visually marks off each issue with us, he writes it down and visually marks it off each issue with our customers. Close on each point. So if they say to you, we want to cover the fact you've moved around a few jobs a bit or whatever, you discuss it, you cover it, you handle it, and then at that point you say, is that okay? Have we now covered that? Yes, great. It's a tick on the whiteboard or it's a tick in your notepad. So you know you can move through it and it helps you get to the end of the interview, at which point you can close it more effectively. Let's talk about closing the interview. The key thing to remember is this is a much more tactical process, and we've talked about this in the first set of videos. It's a much more tactical process than you've ever been used to. Miles more tactical. So the candidates that do well, let's go back to the basics of the original Show Me the Money videos and document you originally read. One, you do a summary. Okay, everybody, let's just cover what we've talked about today. You asked me to talk about that, and that. Question one, is there anything else you would like me to cover outside of the points we've agreed upon here? Yes, no. If there are, cover them. If there aren't, don't. And then there is one question and one question to rule them all. Not, where do we go from here? Which is what the next 99% of candidates ask. You ask the clear, straight question. Is there any reason why you won't offer me the job today? And one of a few things is going to happen. They're either going to say, no, we love you, great, we'd like to offer you a job, at which point you start negotiating your salary, or alternatively, which is more than likely, they're going to say, tell you what, we need to have a little bit of a chat. And at that point, the candidates that do really well hang in there a little bit. So the good ones will say, great, I appreciate you guys want to have a chat, and I'm delighted that you want to do a little bit of thinking and a little bit of due diligence. Having said that, I'm already here, so why don't I nip into town now, you guys have a chat, and I'll come back and we can put this to bed one way or another in the next hour or so. They'll say, oh, no, really, you don't need to do that. It's late. Why don't you hit the road and get back to doing what you were doing, and we've all got to go into separate meetings. And the candidates that do well at this point, they just edge it gently a little bit further forward. You don't have to be aggressive. Just edge it forward with a nice, compelling argument. So I had a candidate do this the other week. He said to the hiring committee, look, if I get this job, based on my CV, I'm going to give you the next 5 years of my life and my career. And equally, I'm asking you guys to probably give me 5 years of employment, but I'm going to give you 5 years of my life and my career here. And I appreciate everybody's busy, and I appreciate we've all got stuff to do. But all I'm asking in return is the small commitment that we can either in this or out this today. Because, let's get it right. I'm about to make a very big commitment with my life here, potentially, if I come and work for you. And at that point, they all said, well, I'll tell you what, look, we're all in meetings, but we can catch up later on in the day. We can talk to you later on if you want. And he said, well, actually, I've got nothing on, my diary's clear. I'm going to go and sit in the Starbucks down the street, and I'm going to go and work all day. I'll come back here at 4 o'clock. If it's a no, you can tell me and I can crack on with my life. And if it's a yes, we'll put it to bed today. Guess what? At 5 p.m. that night, he walked out of that office with an offer letter in his hand. And he was a senior level guy. It was a 90k basic salary job. He walked out of there with an offer letter in his hand. He had signed it and went and resigned the next day. It can be done. As a candidate, you've got more control of the process than you think. You've got more control of your ability to get and obtain and win in the recruitment process than most people think. It's about being compelling and being firm with the people that they see. The other objection you're going to get is, well, we've got a few more people to see, let's come back to you. Don't for 1 minute think you can't close at that point. Most people ring me and I get the candidates on the phone, oh, well, they've got more to see. Yeah, well, there's lots of deals where the customer's got more potential suppliers to see, but good sales guys, they end the process there and then. They find a reason to bring it to a close, to compel the customer to doing something he wouldn't have thought of doing. That's what we all get paid to do, isn't it? So a good argument here is to say, look, I appreciate that and I think it's important we all do our due diligence. When I went into this process, I was really specific with what I wanted from my next role. And to be fair to you guys, the role absolutely meets all of my needs. And because of that, if you offer me the job today, I'll cancel all my other interviews that I've got on the go because I don't need to go to any more, because I will have solved my problem. Because there's always one more interview I can go to because I'm a good guy. Similarly, what I'm asking you is, if I've met your needs, why don't you cancel the other interviews? Let's just put this to bed. If I'm right for you and you're right for me, why not? And you'd be amazed. One, it demonstrates that you're prepared to hang in there and close, providing you don't do it in too aggressive a way. And two, every now and then it bloody well works. And they go, fair enough. And that's where your why you, why me document comes into it. That why you, why me document demonstrates that they meet your needs and you meet theirs, so why are we all waiting to see more candidates in 2 weeks' time? The other point is to go back to the concept of, given that I'm prepared to commit the next 5 years of my life and my career to you, I'd like to think that based on the fact that I've met all your needs, you can show me a similar level of commitment at this point in the meeting. After all, you can always go to another interview, I can always go to another interview, and there's always another candidate you can see. But if I'm right for you and you're right for me, why don't we put this to bed today? So remember, the key thing about second interviews is winning them well before you show up and then doing a decent meeting on the day, but actually performing on the day isn't that important. The people that get the jobs at second interviews have usually got them before they've walked through the door because of the work they did in the intervening period between first and second interviews. It's rare that a candidate turns up and blows everybody away on presentation day with a wow presentation that wasn't already ahead. And if a candidate on presentation day, if there are 4 candidates and one of them has played the game right in between, they always win. Good luck.